We're looking at Mark chapter 8 verse 27. Jesus makes this self-declaration. He's saying, who do people say I am? Who do you say I am? And then they say, you are the Christ. And then that identity leads to a role, leads to a function, leads to destiny, leads to life purpose. And Jesus began to explain that his real identity had real consequences for the way he was going to live, and for the way that anybody who followed him would also live if they wanted to follow him. And so in verse 31, then, in the light of this revelation of who he is, you are the Messiah, he began to teach them that the Son of Man must undergo great suffering and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He said all this quite openly, and Peter takes him aside and begins to rebuke him, but turning and looking at his disciples, he rebukes Peter and says, get behind me, Satan, for you are setting your mind not on the things of God, but on the things of man. So that's the crux of the whole gospel right there. It's amazing people can sit around and be Christians for decades, hearing stories about Jesus, and never really come to that basic, fundamental question. What about you? Who do you think I am? What do you think of me? And it's not even there. It's not just a matter of getting the answer right, of doing like as an exam or something. It's a matter of knowing the Jesus who is revealed in Scripture, and opening your heart to receive that revelation, personally believing in him, and then acting on that belief. Your belief has a direct consequence upon your behaviour. If you think that Jesus wants to make you rich, then you're going to live that way. And give us a bob while you're there. Okay, and you'll notice that Peter comes forward. Maybe he's speaking on behalf of the others, and he gives the right answer. It's the right answer. You are the Messiah. You are the Christ. But they don't really understand yet what Messiah means. As far as they're concerned, Messiah means a political, military leader who would defeat the enemies and bring the Jews back on top. And that's what those expectations of the other people were. I think that Jesus is like Elijah. He's going to confront an evil kingdom. I think Jesus is like John the Baptist. He's going to confront Herod and sort him out. I think he's like one of the prophets who denounce, and so it goes on. He's a confrontational Superman who's going to take on the baddies. But just like Jesus refused to let the crowd define who he was, so he wouldn't allow them to define him either. Yes, he was the Messiah, but not the kind of Messiah they were expecting. And that's why he starts using this word, Son of Man. Son of Man. It's a kind of phrase that he used to start again, to pull the carpet from underneath their expectations, to make them think in a different way. And also, the phrase Son of Man relates what he's about to say to us, because in an important sense, we also are sons and daughters of man. We also are. It's like saying the human one, the real human one. And so Jesus tells no one, tells the disciples to tell no one about Peter's confession, because he was not about to be manoeuvred into a position of a conquering hero. He was heading for suffering servant, and it was a radically different journey. And that's made very clear in the verses that follow. He taught them that the Son of Man must suffer many things. Jesus must suffer many things, must be rejected by the establishment, by the religious leaders of the day, and then rise from the dead. Salvation will not come through the power of military confrontation or human success stories. Think about this. Jesus is God's success story, and he dies. Jesus is God's success story, and he suffers and is tortured brutally. Salvation will not come through human success stories. It will come through a sacrificial lamb who lays down his life for the sins of the world. And Jesus was quite clear about this, and that's what makes the pronouncement so unnerving, so unsettling, so weird. And Peter takes him aside with a generous arm around his shoulder to put him straight, saying, well, and Jesus rebukes him. It's not because Peter didn't understand what Jesus said. You know, Mark Twain said, it's not the things that I don't understand about the Bible that upsets me, it's the things I do understand. Many people are bothered by the things that they don't understand, but really the main point is, this is absolutely crystal clear. I am going to suffer, I am going to die, I am going to be rejected, and you are going to follow me. He said, no. And Peter was upset by the demands of God, just as I am. But when my flesh pulls away from the fire, I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to be confronted by pain. Peter wants a Messiah who predicts an easy victory, and he gets a Messiah who predicts a costly sacrifice. And worse, he pulls us into it, and he says, the way I go is the way you must follow if you would be my disciples. We try so hard to change Jesus into something that he's not. We want a path of comfort. We want a path of safety. And instead we get this Messiah who tells us to deny ourselves. And Peter's like saying, Jesus, you just got to be more positive about this. And Jesus turns from blessing Peter and saying, you've seen it, well done, blessing on you, to almost cursing him, saying, get behind me, Satan, you are not minding the things of God, you are minding the things of man. Do you remember he used that phrase before, get behind me, Satan? Do you remember when he did it? It was in the temptations, when he said it to Satan and said, get behind me, Satan. He turned from the devil. The temptation was to rule all the kingdoms of the world, but Jesus would not bow down to that temptation. And again, he uses the same phrase against Peter and calls us as his disciples into that. That's the confrontation that is going to be expounded in the next couple of chapters. Okay, God bless.